So something I did forget to do was up here we have our level up, but it really doesn't make any sense because I mean if we were just running on EXP to our main level, then that'd be alright. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a public int. Let's put it at buff points. I guess we could put it as that. Now, you may be wondering why I did that. Is that now whenever we level, we're going to get these, or whenever we get a certain amount of EXP, it'll give us some buff points, and we can spend these buff points on our attack, dexterity, and our strength. So, with that, we need to keep in mind that we don't make anything give too much XP and nothing too little XP. So, actually, I'm just going to have to get rid of that because that really doesn't make any sense. And then we can do buff points plus equals, we'll give them 3. So that way you will get a level whenever you level up, no matter what. So, now what we're going to have to do to actually make it buff these skills, or like make you be able to spend your buff points, is that we can either do one of two things. We can make a GUI interface with buttons asking which one do you want to buff, or we can do just a key. Like say you wanted to do like F2 would buff attack, F3 dexterity, F4 strength, which is what we're going to do for now, because I'm not going to get into the GUI window until later along with the buttons. But it's nothing to worry about, they are simple. And I do apologize that this video is going to be split up into like 8,000 different videos because we're already 32 minutes in and I have a 10-minute YouTube limit. But that'll be alright, you're just going to have to keep watching them so they all make sense because they're going to cut off in weird areas. Okay. So we're going to do keycode dot F1, no, we're going to do F2. And we're going to do, let's see here, buff points minus minus, which is just going to subtract 1 from the buff points. And then we're going to do our attack plus plus. And so it's just going to take 1 buff point out and give us plus 1 attack. And we're going to have to do that for the same for our F3 and F4 and for our strength and dexterity. Okay. So, whenever we hit these keys, it's going to subtract buff points and add to our attack. But, since we're doing the logical function, which is our if statement, and it's basically just checking to see if we pressed the key and we released the key, because get key down is just saying you've pressed it all the way in once and you've lifted it up off the key, then it's just going to subtract buff points. But the problem is that we have no way of asking it to say like, oh, he has 0 buff points, we cannot let him boost his attack anymore, or whatever else it is. So inside of this if statement, we're going to nest another one, in which will be if buff points is greater than 0. So now that'll take care of that problem. That's all you gotta do. So go ahead and put that in all of your if statements. I'm going to have to go back and clean up this one a little bit because it looks awful. Okay. Sorry about this. Really OCD about how my code looks. And we're going to put an else statement in these, which is pretty much saying anything else that is there. Like in this case, it's going to be if it has 0 buff points, then it's going to say or do whatever we have in our else statement. So we're going to do a method called debug.log not enough buff points. And we're just going to copy and paste this into our other ones. We're going to save that. And we're going to go ahead and start them off with 3, just for testing purposes. We can exit out of that. Going to restart our game. Okay, so we got 3 buff points. Okay, we hit F2. And if you watch over here in our inspector, it should change. Whoops, I'm on my enhanced F keys. Okay, now F2, F3, F4, and F2 again, because apparently it didn't register the first time at F2. Okay, so we now have our buff points spent. Now if we have 2 again, we'll get this little message down here saying not enough buff points. Same thing with if we just click any of them, that's what it's going to say. And this is a nice thing to have because I know in VB people use either message box or they'll stop or pause their program and say what's going on. So that's nice to know. So we're going to end our game right there. And we're going to have to go over here in our get key down. We're actually going to make this a lot better, a lot more universal, and save a lot of code. Because we don't need 1,000 F keys down for just these functions. So I'm going to introduce some of you guys to a switch statement in a second. And basically what a switch statement does is that if you have a certain value in the switch, then it's going to do something for that value. It kind of doesn't make sense whenever you say it, but it makes sense whenever you look at it. Okay, so in our level up, it's recalculating these way too early because we haven't spent any of them. So we're going to delete that. We can keep our buff points, but now what we're going to do is we're going to do, let's see, we're just going to make a new method all in all. We're going to call it our buff stat. Then we can do int amount. Because once we actually get into an interface, we don't want to have to sit there and keep pressing 1 if we have like 20 or 30 points. So our amount lets us have a little flexibility and add multiple ones at one time. And then we can do, first off, we're going to check if buff points is greater than 0, which is just checking to see if we have any buff points. And then if it does, then we're going to put whatever in that. So we're going to do, well, actually, let's add another integer up here, which will be good. int skill.